Part 10 of my inspiration series on model railways, featuring EM gauge layouts. The last parts of my inspiration series cover fine scale layouts. To understand the meaning of fine scale, you have to go back before the Second World War. German manufacturers began to produce models that were half the size of O gauge to a scale of 3.5 mm to the foot. This was referred to as half O or HO scale and is the most popular scale throughout the world. The UK uses the same track as HO gauge, but models are built to 4 mm to the foot scale. The track gauge of 16.5 mm is a narrow gauge for 4 mm scale. Some modelers want a more accurate scale gauge ratio than 00. The scale of 4 mm to the foot equates to approximately 18 mm. So the 18 mm EM gauge society was born in the 1950s. This means that a 4 mm 00 scale model that runs on a 16.5 mm track has to be re-wheeled to run on wider 18 mm gauge track. This video covers EM gauge layouts. Hi, I'm Andrew Gebby. You're watching the Heritage and Model Rail channel. And if this is the first time to this channel, become a subscriber. And don't forget the bell icon so that you can be notified when new content appears. This EM gauge layout is Hansie Broadway, exhibited by Keir Hardie. There are a number of limited vantage points in the metropolis due to the built-up nature of the area. But here we will be able to see a cross-section of express passenger and suburban trains, along with a wide variety of interregional freight making its way to and from marshalling yards and industries of East London. I spoke with Keir at the exhibition to get some more information.
Primarily this is a recreation of my train spotting days when I was a teenager. It's the area of North London, an amalgam of various locations, and somewhere where we would have seen trains passing by, the sort of trains that you would have seen back in the day.
Right, and what sort of era is it?
We're talking early 1970s.
Okay. How big is it?
The scenic section is 24 foot long, but to enable trains to run through the scene we have the end curves and the storage yard at the back, which takes the layout up to a total size of 40 foot long. There's 4 independent circuits and you can connect from one to the other via various loops, crossovers, flyovers and cut-unders.
How have you done your back scene?
I've tended not to bother too much with the back scene, but to try and create or enclose the scene by using 3-dimensional buildings.
Right.
So what you see at the back of the layout are the buildings raised high to try and give that effect.
The buildings, are they scratch or kit?
There's a mixture there of HO scale kits. There's a lot of scratch built buildings. Just 1 or 2 you might be able to identify as ready to plonk, but heavily customised.
Okay. Control, what's your control system?
Just basic DC.
Okay.
We haven't gone down any
digital
route. No, there's no digital.
Track, what's your track?
The scenic section we tend to use C&L, ready to lay EM, and then all the point work is built in situ using copper-clad sleepers.
Okay.
For the off-scene section we tend to use more robust SMP, and in the storage yard we use aluminium angle.
What's your stock?
It's a mixture of kit built and proprietary ready to run, but again everything's customised. We use a lot of Bachmann, Helgen, there's 1 or 2 Hornby items, and the kits, well, we've got parkside kits, mainly for the wagon fleet, so there's quite a variety there.
Okay. I notice you've got a number of operators. How many people does it take to operate?
At any one time there are 6 controllers, so we have 2 for the depot and 4 for the main lines. So if we have a team of 9 it means that we have sort of a good system of rest and control.
Thank you very much. This EM scale layout is Minories, exhibited by Tom Cunnington. The layout is based on one of the classic layout plans by the late Cyril Freezer, Minories. The concept was to show that a busy terminus station could be modelled in a limited space using the proprietary track available at the time. Our model is an imagined extension of the Moorgate widened lines further into the City of London to a 3-platform terminus. The period model is the late 1960s to early 1970s, before the electrification of the suburban lines from King's Cross and St Pancras. This small rundown passenger terminus in the heart of the city has a highly peaked diesel train service from and to a range of destinations on the Great Northern and Midland main lines. The Great Northern service in the late green and early blue period included a wide range of locomotives on suburban services, including classes 15, 20, 21, 23, 24, 26 and mainly 31, hauling 5-coach trains of Mark I suburban coaches. These were followed by predominantly Class 105 multiple units. The Midland service would have seen Class 127 or 116 bedpan DMUs handling its traffic. The layout is built in EM gauge. Our main compromise has been to lengthen the points to give more generous curves. It makes the scenic area about a foot longer and 2 inches wider than Cyril envisaged. The rolling stock is generally ready to run, although most of it has been heavily modified and detailed. Craven's DMUs are from DC kits. Midland DMUs are cut and shut Lima, and some of the more unusual coaches are Comet or Bill Bedford kits. This EM gauge layout is North Ballachulish, exhibited by Andy Cooper. The scenario is that the Callander and Oban Railway had an act passed to build a railway to Fort William and on through the Great Glen to link Oban, Fort William with Inverness. There was such an act put before Parliament in reality, but it failed as the good burghers of Fort William objected to a railway along the front of the loch. Taking advantage of the easier running over the north branch of Loch Leven, a branch was made at North Ballachulish to enable goods workings to the Kinloch Leven aluminium smelter. The station building is scratch built and based on Kentallen on the real Ballachulish branch. Plans were obtained for the building from the Scottish Records Office. A simple goods yard with coal merchant completes the scene. Signals are built from MSE components and other scratch built parts. All the buildings are built from styrene sheet from various manufacturers. Track is C&L Finescale, the points being scratch built using ply sleepers, Code 75 bullhead rail and Exacto scale chairs. Set in 1970-71, apart from the passengers traffic from the ubiquitous 27s and 26s and 20s down from Inverness, there are goods workings to Kinloch Leven carrying grain for the distilleries and oil traffic as well as some van and 16-ton mineral traffic. All the buildings are from the North Ballachulish area, included the cottage group on the corner and also St Bride's Church and the manse, which are all situated in their exact location. This EM gauge 4mm scale layout is Wainthwaite Bridge, exhibited by Simon Howard. The layout depicted here is an imaginary single track branch line of the LYR based around the late 1920s. The buildings on the layout are based on actual prototypes. The station building is based on Cleckheaton, signal box is based on Entwistle, and a goods shed a stone version of Liversedge. All buildings are built from scratch with card and plasticard. Measuring 12 feet by 18 inches, there are 2 scenic boards and 1 fiddle yard board. The track work on the layout is hand-built to EM gauge standards, making use of parts from the C&L Finescale range using separate sleepers and chairs. Point work is made operational by means of wire and tube and rotating levers, and utilises microswitches for changing the polarity on the points. The stock used on the layout is a mixture of kit and scratch-built items. Most of the rolling stock and the locos are compensated to aid reliable running. Automatic uncoupling is utilised by means of the Spratt-and-Winkle hook and bar method, with permanent magnets strategically placed around the layout. The scenery is built using styrene, card and paper, to name a few. Woodland Scenics and Green Scene Scenic Flock was used to create foliage, and car insulation fibre used for grassy areas. My thanks to Simon for providing the information. This EM gauge layout is Broom Junction, exhibited by Charles Stevens and Shrewley Modellers. Broom Junction is one of the few stations that existed merely to allow passengers to change trains. The station has limited road access, and being situated in a small Warwickshire village, little local traffic was generated. Instead, it played a major role in the interchange between the north-south line between Birmingham and Ashchurch of the Midland Railway and the east-west line of the Midland and Stratford-upon-Avon joint line. It also played an important part in the exchange of long-distance freight traffic, which used these backwater lines to avoid clogging up some of the major routes. Until 1942, when a new spur was opened, the junction faced north, so that all freight trains from SMUR heading south had to reverse at Broome. The new spur missed the station completely, and all southbound trains were capable of continuing without stopping. The model represents the situation in the mid-30s, before the spur was built. This EM gauge layout is Bordsey, exhibited by Alan Rollis and Chris Wright. This is Bordsey, a small village in Essex which has no rail connection. With a rail connection, many places experienced an increase in population, so this Bordsey is substantially larger than the real Bordsey. What did exist in the area from 1936 until the 1990s was RAF Bordsey, an establishment important in the development of radar and much developed in this period because of the Cold War. So we have an excuse for a small branch running from Bordsey to Bordsey Quay on the River Debden and the RAF station, hence fulfilling the modeller's idea of what might have been. Plain track work is C&L plastic sleepered. Point work is handmade using EM Gauge Society plywood sleepers and copper rivets, with C&L plastic chairs stuck on afterwards. Ballasting is Slater's limestone chippings or silver sand. Buildings are cardboard covered with super quick yellow brick and grey slate papers. DG automatic couplings are fitted where necessary to take advantage of electromagnets at strategic positions as originally installed. Everything is too small, too short or too close together, but we make no apologies for this. After all, this is a model railway and not a model of a railway. There is also the consideration that when it is erected, it has to fit in a room in the house, and for transport to shows, fit in the car. Check out other content that I have by selecting the playlist. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you there.